Hey everyone, welcome back to the Gold IRA Blueprint podcast.
Glad to be here.
Today we're going deep on something a lot of you have been asking about, securing physical gold for your retirement.
Yeah, it's a topic we get questions about all the time.
And I get it right. Gold seems like a safe haven, especially when you're thinking about the long haul and protecting your savings.
It's a great way to diversify your portfolio and create a more stable foundation for your retirement.
So let's say you've decided to add some physical gold to your retirement plan.
The next big question is storage.
Because you're not just going to stuff it under your mattress, right?
You could, but it's not exactly the most secure or practical approach.
Yeah, you're probably going to want something a little more sophisticated than that.
Exactly. There are actually three main categories of gold storage that we'll talk about today: home storage, private vaults, and depository storage.
Okay, let's break those down, starting with home storage. That's the one we all think of, right? Keeping your gold tucked away in a safe.
It's definitely tempting. I mean, there's a certain appeal to having direct access to your gold.
Yeah, but let's be real, most homes aren't exactly Fort Knox.
Exactly. You're dealing with risks like theft, fire, natural disasters.
Not to mention, what if your kids find it?
Right. Plus, your homeowner's or renter's insurance might not cover the full value of your gold if something were to happen.
So home storage probably isn't the best option if you're serious about protecting a significant amount of gold.
Agreed. It's worth considering, but it's important to weigh those risks carefully.
Okay, so let's move on to professional storage options, starting with private vaults. What are those all about?
Think of a private vault like a high-security safety deposit box, but for gold.
Ah, okay.
They're typically located in specialized facilities with reinforced walls, multiple layers of security, and 24/7 monitoring.
So definitely a step up from the home safe.
Exactly. But it's important to do your research and compare different providers because private vaults can vary quite a bit in terms of their features and access protocols.
Good point. So what about depository storage? How does that differ from a private vault?
Depositories are like the Fort Knox of gold storage.
Oh, wow. So they're even more secure than private vaults.
You could say that. They're designed to hold massive amounts of gold, and they often have the most stringent security measures in place.
Like what kind of security measures are we talking about?
We're talking armed guards, biometric scanners, even those Faraday cages you hear about that protect against electromagnetic pulses.
Faraday cages. That sounds like something out of a science fiction movie.
It might sound futuristic, but it highlights the level of protection these depositories offer.
Wow. So it seems like depository storage is the ultimate in terms of security.
It's definitely a top contender, but there are some potential drawbacks to consider, like accessibility.
What do you mean?
With a private vault, you might be able to access your gold relatively quickly, maybe with a day or two notice.
Okay.
But depositories often have stricter procedures and longer wait times for withdrawals.
So there's a trade-off between security and accessibility.
Exactly. And the right choice for you will depend on your individual needs and priorities. Do you value peace of mind knowing your gold is under the tightest security, or do you need more flexibility?
And before we forget, let's remind everyone about that free checklist we have.
Yes, it's on our website, goldirablueprint.com/exclusive.
It's a great starting point for anyone considering adding gold to their retirement portfolio.
You can download it for free, and it'll walk you through the steps of choosing the right gold IRA company.
Definitely worth checking out. Okay, so we've got these three main storage options: home, private vault, and depository. But I've also heard the terms segregated storage and allocated storage. What do those mean?
Good question. Those terms refer to how your gold is held within the storage facility.
Okay.
With segregated storage, your gold is kept separate from everyone else's. Think of it like having your own private wine cellar within a larger wine vault.
Gotcha. So you know exactly where your gold is, and it's not mixed in with anyone else's holdings.
Precisely. It gives you a clear chain of custody.
Okay, so if I'm really concerned about provenance and knowing exactly which gold bars or coins I own, segregated storage would be the way to go.
It could be. It's a great option for those who value that level of control. But it does come at a premium. Segregated storage typically costs about 20 to 30% more than allocated storage.
There's always a catch. So what's allocated storage all about?
With allocated storage, your gold might be stored alongside other clients' holdings.
So it's more like a communal wine cellar.
Exactly. It's more cost-effective, but you don't have that same level of individual identification.
Gotcha. So it's a trade-off between cost and traceability.
You got it. It really comes down to your priorities and risk tolerance.
This is all making a lot more sense.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling there's even more to this gold storage puzzle, right?
You're right. We've only just scratched the surface. We still need to talk about insurance, legal considerations, and estate planning.
All crucial aspects for anyone considering gold as part of their retirement strategy.
Exactly. We'll dive into those topics in our next segment.
Stay tuned, folks.
So we were talking about the importance of choosing the right storage option.
Yeah, making sure your gold is safe and sound.
Exactly. But it's not just about the physical storage.
There's more.
Right. We also need to think about insurance and legal considerations.
Okay, let's start with insurance. When it comes to gold, is my regular homeowner's or renter's insurance enough?
That's a great question, and it's something a lot of people assume.
Yeah, I just figured my stuff is covered.
But standard policies often have limits on how much they'll cover for valuables like jewelry or precious metals.
Oh, so if you have a lot of gold, a regular policy might not cut it.
Exactly. You'll likely need a separate policy or rider specifically for your gold holdings.
Kind of like how you need special insurance for a classic car or an expensive piece of art.
Perfect analogy. You need tailored coverage for those unique assets, and gold is no different.
So when you're shopping for insurance, what are some of the key things to consider?
Well, first you'll want to think about the value of your gold holdings. How much coverage do you need to fully protect your investment?
Okay, makes sense.
And then you'll want to consider the type of storage you're using: home storage, private, vault depository. Each one has its own set of risks and considerations.
Right, so the insurance company will want to know where you're keeping your gold.
Exactly. And finally, you'll want to compare coverage limits, deductibles, and exclusions. Make sure you understand the fine print before you sign on the dotted line.
So due diligence is key here.
Absolutely. Don't just assume you're covered. Do your research and ask questions.
Okay, so let's say I'm storing my gold in a depository. Does the depository usually provide insurance, or do I need to find my own?
Most reputable depositories will have insurance coverage as part of their services.
Okay, so that makes things a little easier.
It does. But again, it's crucial to understand the specifics of their policy.
Yeah.
What are the coverage limits? What's covered and what's not?
Right, don't just assume everything is automatically protected.
Exactly. And here's another important tip. When you're setting up your estate plan, make sure your loved ones know about the insurance policy and how to access it.
Yeah, that's a good point. You don't want them scrambling to find that information when they need it most.
Right. It's all about being organized and proactive. Keep a list of important documents and their locations. Maybe even include contact information for your attorney or financial advisor.
Because you're not leaving your loved ones in the lurch.
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked about insurance. Now let's shift gears and talk about those what-if scenarios.
What if I need to access my gold quickly? Or what if something happens to me?
Those are important questions, and the answers will depend on the type of storage you've chosen.
Okay, so let's break it down starting with private vaults.
Sure. If you have your gold in a private vault, you'll typically need to provide identification and maybe some other documentation to verify your ownership.
Okay, so it's not as simple as just showing up and asking for your gold.
Right. There are procedures in place, and some vaults might require an appointment in advance, while others might have more flexible access hours.
So it's a bit like visiting your bank's safety deposit box, but maybe with more steps involved.
Yeah, you could say that. And if you need to access your gold quickly, well, that's where things can get a little tricky.
Oh, why is that?
Because the access procedures and timelines can vary quite a bit from vault to vault. Some might require a waiting period of a few days or even weeks.
Wow, weeks. That doesn't sound very convenient.
It's not ideal if you need immediate liquidity. That's why it's important to understand the specific access protocols of any private vault you're considering.
Okay, so if I'm the kind of person who values quick access to my assets, maybe a private vault isn't the best option.
It might not be. What about depository storage? How does that work in terms of accessing your gold?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Depositories typically have more streamlined procedures and shorter waiting periods for withdrawals.
Okay, so it's a bit faster.
They're designed for efficiency, and they often have systems in place to handle withdrawals relatively quickly.
So if I needed to sell some of my gold to cover an unexpected expense, it would be easier to do that with a depository.
Potentially, yes. But remember, even with depositories, there will be some procedures to follow. You'll likely need to submit a request in advance, and there might be a small processing fee involved.
Okay, so it's not like withdrawing cash from an ATM, but it's generally a faster process than dealing with a private vault.
Right. And this is where choosing the right storage option comes down to your individual needs and priorities.
Exactly. There's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Right. Now let's move on to another important topic: estate planning.
Okay, that's the big one. What happens to my gold when I'm gone?
It's not always the most pleasant thing to think about, but it's crucial to have a plan.
Yeah, especially if you want to make sure your gold passes on to your loved ones smoothly and according to your wishes.
Exactly. And one of the first things you need to consider is how your gold holdings are titled.
You mentioned this earlier, direct ownership versus trust ownership.
Hmm.
Can you remind us what those mean and why they matter for estate planning?
Sure. With direct ownership, the gold is simply in your name, just like any other asset you own.
Okay, straightforward enough.
But the downside is that when you pass away, assets held under direct ownership typically go through probate.
And probate can be a long and expensive process, right?
It can. It can also be public, meaning the details of your estate, including your gold holdings, become part of the public record.
So if privacy is a concern, direct ownership might not be the best option.
Right. Now, the alternative is trust ownership.
Okay, tell me about that.
With a trust, you're creating a separate legal entity that holds and manages your assets, including your gold.
Okay,
You appoint a trustee to oversee the trust and follow your instructions, and you name beneficiaries who will inherit the assets according to the terms of the trust agreement.
so the trust basically acts like a middleman, ensuring that your assets are distributed according to your wishes even after you're gone.
Exactly. And one of the key advantages of using a trust is that it can help your assets avoid probate.
So my gold would pass directly to my beneficiaries without going through that lengthy court process.
Right. Which can save your loved ones time, money, and hassle.
Plus, you get to keep things private.
Exactly. Now, trusts can also offer some tax advantages depending on how they're structured.
Okay, so there are potential tax benefits as well.
Yes. But setting up a trust is more complex than just holding the gold in your own name.
Yeah, I imagine it involves a lot of legal paperwork.
It does. Which is why it's crucial to seek guidance from a qualified estate planning attorney who specializes in trusts and precious metals.
They can help you create a trust that meets your specific needs and goals.
Exactly. Now, regardless of whether you choose direct ownership or trust ownership, it's crucial to make sure your estate planning documents are up to date and clearly reflect your wishes regarding your gold holdings.
So I need to make sure my will or trust documents specifically address my gold and how I want it to be handled.
Right. You want to specify things like who inherits the gold, how it should be divided, and any instructions for its management or sale.
It's all about being clear and making things as easy as possible for your loved ones.
Exactly. And remember, your estate plan isn't a one-time thing. It's a living document that you should review and update periodically as your circumstances change.
Okay, so don't just set it and forget it.
Right. Treat it like a financial checkup. Review it regularly and make adjustments as needed.
This has been super helpful. I'm feeling a lot more confident about how to protect my gold and make sure it's handled according to my wishes.
I'm glad to hear that. And speaking of helpful resources, don't forget to check out that free checklist we mentioned earlier.
Right. It's on our website, goldirablueprint.com/exclusive.
It's a great resource for anyone looking to invest in a gold IRA. It'll walk you through the steps of choosing the right company and setting up your account.
Definitely worth downloading.
Yeah.
So we've covered insurance, estate planning access procedures. What else do we need to talk about?
Well, in our final segment, we'll dive into the security measures used to protect your gold, and we'll discuss some additional considerations for choosing the right storage solution.
Okay, so we've talked about insurance and estate planning and all those important details.
Right, making sure your gold is protected no matter what.
Exactly. Now I want to get into the nitty-gritty of security. Like, how do these storage facilities actually keep our gold safe?
Yeah, that's a big one. People want to know their investment is locked down tight.
So paint a picture for us. What kind of security measures are we talking about?
Well, first off, imagine a fortress-like structure with walls made of reinforced concrete several feet thick.
Whoa, so we're talking serious fortifications.
Oh, yeah. These walls are designed to withstand just about anything you can throw at them.
Like a tank.
Pretty much. And it's not just the walls. You've also got layers of physical security like perimeter fencing motion detectors and 24/7 surveillance cameras.
So there's no sneaking around these places.
Nope. And of course, there are armed guards patrolling the premises as well.
So it's a combination of high-tech security and good old-fashioned human vigilance.
Exactly. They've got all the bases covered.
But what about internal security? What's stopping an employee from just walking off with a gold bar?
That's where internal controls and auditing procedures come in.
Okay, so they've got checks and balances in place.
Right. Reputable storage facilities have strict protocols to prevent internal theft or any kind of mishandling of assets.
Like what kind of protocols?
Well, for starters, they do thorough background checks on all employees, and they have dual control procedures, which means 2 authorized individuals have to be present for certain operations.
So it's like the buddy system, but for gold.
Exactly. And then there are the audits, which are typically conducted by independent third parties.
So they have outside experts coming in to make sure everything's on the up and up.
Right. They check everything from physical security measures to inventory management systems.
So they're leaving no stone unturned.
Nope. They want to make absolutely sure that the facility is meeting the highest standards of security.
It's reassuring to know.
Yeah.
So besides all the physical security measures, what about technology? What kind of tech are they using to protect our gold?
Well, we mentioned Faraday cages earlier.
Right, those things that protect against electromagnetic pulses.
Exactly. And then you've got things like biometric scanners, which use fingerprints or iris patterns for access control.
So it's like something out of a spy movie.
It's all about making sure that only authorized personnel can access the gold.
That's impressive.
Ah.
So when I'm choosing a storage facility, what should I be asking about in terms of security?
Don't be afraid to ask lots of questions. A reputable facility will be happy to walk you through their security protocols.
Good advice. So we've covered a lot of ground today, from storage options to insurance, to estate planning to security measures.
And don't forget that free checklist on our website.
Right, goldirablueprint.com/exclusive.
It's a great resource for anyone looking to invest in gold for retirement.
Well, I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about today.
Hopefully they feel more informed and empowered to make smart decisions about their gold investment.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll be back next time with another deep dive into the world of gold IRAs.